inshallah ta'ala, we will begin a series of lectures, maybe 2, maybe 3. We'll see how we're able to do in terms of time, about a topic that all of us have heard about, and the popular culture has introduced it to us from a young age, and there are references in our tradition about this reality. It is the topic of the evil eye, in Arabic called al-ayn, in Urdu and in Bangla called an-nadar or an-najar. So the notion of nadar or ayn, the notion in English of the evil eye. What is its reality? Does it exist? How does it exist? What should we do to prepare ourselves, to protect ourselves against it? How do we know if we have it, if it does exist? And what is the mechanism to get rid of it if we have it? All of these, inshallah ta'ala, will be a part of our discussion. And of course, this is a very long topic, so we might take, a few. We'll see we'll see how quickly we can go through this reality. So I'm going to begin with a historical introduction. And then we move on to the references in the Qur'an, and then the references in the hadith, and then interpretation of the scholars. So I want to give a very comprehensive, a very academic talk about this reality. Because as with many talks, there really is a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of culture mixed with mythology, mixed with Qur'an and Sunnah. And we have to be brave enough to separate the fact from the fiction, right? And as with all lectures, I will try my best to give you the diversity of thought. When I introduce you to the diversity of thought, this does not mean I endorse everything I say. You have to, again, we have to already preempt, because every topic that is given, people are so sensitive in this regard. My dear brothers in Islam, this topic has been contested within our ummah by scholars. I'm not censoring what the scholars have said. I want you to know what they said. So by telling you this guy said this guy said that, it's not an endorsement. You can simply Google without me, but I'll facilitate and teach you. And yes, I will also conclude with my opinion as well. But when I mention other opinions, it's not an endorsement. It is simply the reality we should be aware. And especially when this topic becomes even more problematic, in the sense that so many people assume that any failure they have is due to nadar or ayn. They can't pass their exam, they'll blame ayn rather than not studying, right? The food came out too salty, this is ayn. Their business failed, it is ayn. And honestly, it becomes problematic when you start blaming every failure, right? Even if the concept is real, even if it is real, if you start blaming everything on it, this is a problem, which is actually a bigger problem than reinterpreting al-ayn, to be honest, right? So all of these issues have to be discussed. In order to do so, I ask all of you to leave your emotions to the side and start listening to what the Qur'an and Sunnah, what our scholars have said, and understand this reality. And we hope, inshallah ta'ala, through these series of lectures, inshallah ta'ala, we can separate truth from what we're not certain, could be, could not be, which is middle, from what is clearly mythology. Because there's always a spectrum. This is ilm al-ghayb. It's like the reality of jinn. There are certain things we know, for sure. There are certain things we know, without a doubt, are also not true. And there's a lot that we're not sure about. We should be brave enough to acknowledge this diversity and then proceed with that humility. So with all of this, our talk today, depending on how long we go, I'm going to start off talking about the concept of evil eye pre-Islam, because yes, it exists pre-Islam. And it is important that we mention this in some detail, because the accusation that some people have, is that this notion is actually not Islamic, it is pre-Islamic. And the Islamic tradition has adopted and taken it. This is an accusation that people make. So we need to separate and explain the reality of this. So we begin by the history. And again, in a nutshell, because actually many dissertations have been written about this, you can read quite a lot about these pre-modern cultures or pre-Islamic cultures. One indisputable fact: nadar, the evil eye, al-ayn, was a concept that the vast majority of pre-Islamic societies believed in. This is a fact. There's no two opinions about this. You can go back to the earliest recorded history, and you will find in every single major society the notion of the eyes looking at something with jealousy, causing that something to be harmed, which is what the evil eye is. In essence, one definition is the evil eye is the look or the gaze that is coming from an evil heart. The gaze that is coming from a heart of jealousy, a heart that is burning with rage. How come that guy has it? How come that lady has it? And that gaze affects the end user. This is called the evil eye. So, pre-Islam, this notion is almost universal. It exists in almost all societies. And we have, for example, in the most ancient Sumerian and Akkadian incantations in 2500 BC. That is the earliest recorded history. Sumerian history is the earliest inscriptions we have. There's nothing before that that is written. We don't have recorded history before then at all. Way before the Greeks, way before the Romans, you had the Sumerians, the first civilization in Iraq that recorded its history. Those they're not even hieroglyphics, those carvings, they explicitly mention incantations, du'as, that are supposed to protect the person that says them from the evil eye. The term evil eye is found literally in the Sumerian original. The evil eye, the term evil eye, where do we get it from? Because the Qur'an and Sunnah doesn't have evil eye. It has a nazar or al-ayn, right? Where does the term evil eye come from? It is the English translation of a concept that predates Islam. And so when Islamic culture came with ayin and nazar, when it was translated into English, the concept was already known, and it's called the evil eye. So the Sumerians had du'as. We still have the tablets. There's articles written. I looked up one quickly to make sure that it's actually there. I looked up the original, I can't read Sumerian, don't worry. But just to make sure that I'm telling you the truth, that yes, there is an actual preserved tablet from ancient Sumeria that is meant to be read as a prayer, incantation, to protect people from the evil eye. And the same goes in other cultures as well. The Ugaritic culture, which is after the Sumerians. Pharaonic Egypt, the pharaohs of Egypt, the hieroglyphics, the pyramids. There are hieroglyphic references to rituals to ward off against the evil eye. We now are able to read hieroglyphics, as you know, from the discovery, of the stone, the Rosetta Stone, as you should be aware. So we can read hieroglyphics. And on those hieroglyphics, there are multiple rituals that are done to appease the gods to protect you from the evil eye. And in fact, one of the things that the ancient Egyptians did was that they invented a protective symbol, a talisman. This also existed in the Sumerians as well, but the Egyptians invented a protective symbol. And that symbol was called the Eye of Horus, H-R-U-O-S. And Horus is one of the Egyptian gods. And the Eye of Horus, and all of you have seen this eye in Egyptian images and hieroglyphs. You just don't know it's the Eye of Horus. There's an eye that is shaped like this, and you exactly know what I'm talking about, right? Every one of you has seen it because it's very common. It's every Egyptian, papyri that is sold, every Egyptian image that is sold, it has that eye over there, right? And of course, from that eye, eventually we're going to get to the Turkish turquoise eye, the talisman, right? It goes back to the Eye of Horus. The Eye of Horus was meant to act as a protection against the what? The evil eye. That's why that eye the eye of the God is looking, so it's going to avert the eye that is harmful, right? So we clearly have something that goes back 3,000 years to ancient Egypt that is, again, mainstream. But see, here's the interesting thing. It's not just Eastern cultures. Western cultures, pre-Islam, the Greeks and the Romans, they also believed in this concept. It's very well documented. In fact, in the most iconic Greek philosophers, in Socrates and Plato, you actually have references to the evil eye in Plato. And you have Plato and Socrates saying to Plato, of course you should know that Socrates did not write any books. Plato is recording from Socrates. So Plato says, my Sheikh Socrates, or he didn't say Sheikh, but Plato says Socrates said that, and I quote from Plato's writings, "Nay, my good friend, let us not boast, lest some evil eye put to flight the word I'm about to speak. This is exactly the concept of evil eye. And Socrates is telling Plato, I don't want to boast about this. What I'm going to tell you, this new fact, this new idea, I want to be careful. Just in case the evil eye will then cause me to not able to tell you. I can't boast, I have to be humble. So literally the notion of bragging or boasting is going to attract the attention, and that's going to cause me to not be successful in what I'm about to do. We get it straight here from Socrates and Plato as well. So it's something that is found in pre-Islamic literature. And this is the Greeks. And then the Romans are no different. We have Roman philosophers as well. So we have, Jazakallah khair, we have Roman philosophers, Pliny the Elder. Pliny the Elder was almost contemporaneous of Jesus Christ, a little bit after Jesus, so maybe in the 70s, 70 CE, so 2,000 years ago. Pliny the Elder, he writes, there are people who also bewitch with a glance and who kill those who they stare at for a long period of time. If a person stares with that malice, people can kill them. And this is a pagan Roman philosopher. He's not even a Christian. This is a pagan Roman philosopher. And another philosopher of that time frame, Plutarch, died 120. Plutarch, he writes that very handsome persons, when others look upon them, often suffer damage by envy and the evil eye. This is Plutarch, one of the famous philosophers, dies 120 CE. So again, 2,000 years ago. Says, beautiful, handsome people, it's very common that the evil eye befalls them when people stare at them. And Plutarch actually, because he's a philosopher and a physicist and a chemist, you know how they were back in the day, he actually has an idea that from the eyes emit some supernatural rays. He believes that the eye of the person doing the ayin, the evil eye, there's some type of rays that come and mystically or physically or supernaturally harm that person. Okay, so he writes here that those rays that come, they can potentially cause harm to other people. So we talked about pagan cultures pre-Islam. Abrahamic cultures pre-Islam also believed in the evil eye. Judaism and Christianity. They both have the notion of the evil eye. In Judaism, there is a concept known as ayin harra. Ayin harra. Ayin. Ayin. Literally, it's called ayin. Because again, Hebrew is a Semitic language, as you know. And if you start studying Hebrew, you literally can start doing it very easy because so much of it is basically Semitic. So you understand it very easily. Ayin harra literally means the evil eye. And in Jewish Talmudic literature, there is a lot of reference to the evil eye. And the notion is that, very similar to ours, that it is possible for a person full of envy and jealousy to harm somebody because of ayn harra. And the same is found in the Christian Gospels as well. In Mark chapter 7 verse 22, that Jesus allegedly warned his followers against the dangers of the evil eye. And a long list in that mention is the evil eye. Now, Christian theologians by and large did not take it central to their theology as much as others did, but it is found, and you do find references in some early Christian fathers, the church fathers, but by and large, Christianity has lost its original theology, it's lost its sharia, as you know, and it has also lost many of these things as well, but still the notion is found here and there within Christianity. Now, before we now get to the Qur'an, what do we do with the fact that the notion of the evil eye clearly, undoubtedly, is found in so many civilizations before the coming of the Qur'an? What do you do with this fact? Because this fact can potentially be used in a challenging manner. The response is very simple, and that is, there are two ways to look at it. The way of the believer and the way of the non-believer. The way of the non-believer, the way of the skeptic, the way of the one who doesn't believe in Allah, doesn't believe in revelation, is to say, this is mythology, and all cultures believe that mythology, and Islam is no different. And the same notion that for example, the great flood of Nuh alayhi salam, Okay, another undeniable fact, every single civilization in the globe without exception has a myth of a great flood that engulfed mankind. There is no civilization that does not have such a myth, the story of the great flood. When I say no, I mean we don't know of a single. Native Americans, the Aborigines, who are the most cut off of all human ethnicities. Aborigines have cut off from the rest of civilization 60,000 years ago. For 60,000 years, they had no contact with the rest of the world. They are the most isolated until, white explorers, Cook and Swift ever discovered them in 50, when they finally discovered Australia, and this entire civilization that had literally been cut off from the rest of mankind for 65,000 years. And guess what? In the Aborigines, we have the Great Flood myth as well. So the skeptic comes and says, okay, so the Bible and the Babylonian civilization and the Akkadian civilization and the Sumerian civilization and the Pharaonic civilization and this is a myth. All of it is the myth. And that's from their perspective. From us as the believer perspective, we literally flip the script 180. And I don't find this to be at all illogical. It is absolutely 100% rational. And that is the reason why even the Aborigines have a great flood myth, is because a great flood actually happened. And because it happened, so then that legend survived in all civilizations. And yes, it's not exactly the same. So without a doubt, the Quranic version, we would believe, is the authentic one. And all the other versions have just, been corrupted with memory over time. So the same fact, you can look at it in two different ways. And I don't see any problem in coming to this and saying with the same thing with the evil eye, that the reason why all societies affirmed the evil eye is because at its core, people have experiences that this is real. At its core, they have figured out that something is going on, and they have realized that this is coming from the jealousy and cause and effect. When a jealous person is staring and mumbles something, and this person is burning with jealousy, next thing you know, something happens. In all civilizations, they've kind of put 1 + 1 together. And they said, hey, something's not adding up here. Let's call it something. Let's call it the evil eye. By the way, it's not called the evil eye in every civilization. But interestingly enough, the ancient Sumerians did call it the evil eye. That's why we have the term to this day, right? And the Jewish people call it al-ayn. Ayn, we call it an ayn. And of course, that's, So from our perspective, it doesn't represent a very big problem, because you can flip the script and say the reason why all civilizations mention it is because it's true. And I would also add here another fact. I mentioned this in my other lecture I gave about the reality of the jinn. Interestingly enough, we're not going to go to the jinn today, don't worry. Interestingly enough, every civilization also believes in spirits, in the jinn world. Every civilization. Now, once again, if you're a pseudo-scientific skeptic, you say, oh, this is all child's play. Everybody has this mythology. Flip the script. Why does every single civilization on earth believe in entities that are beyond our physical vision? Why? They have called them different names, fairies and demons and ghouls and ghosts. Call them what you will. The notion of a non-physical being that interacts with our world, appears in terrifying forms, is not nice to us, is evil. That notion is 100% universal around the globe. In fact, even in this world of America, when people have denied God, there are many people who deny God, but they don't deny the supernatural. They don't deny belief in other entities. Why? Because they've experienced it. I have met people in the course of my interaction in academia and whatnot. I have met so many people. They don't believe in a higher power. They believe in a lower power. Can you believe? Literally. Because they've experienced things. And when you've experienced things, or their families have experienced things, or their friends have experienced things, and so they say there must be a world out there. There must be some entities out there. Call them what you will. We call them jinn. They call them other things. So my point is that for the believer, the fact that the notion of the evil eye is universal should not at all be problematic. We can quite literally flip the script and say it is universal because it is real.